We're now, ladies and gentlemen, we are on live stream. Kia ora koutou and welcome to today's information session. Before we start, a reminder that the workshop is live streamed. While the workshop is open to the public, it is for staff to provide guidance to elected members, not a forum for debate or decisions. It is also not a forum for the public to provide input into decisions or bring other matters to the attention of council. If a member of the public does want to do this, feel free to talk to staff and they can help you have your say. We'll now hear from Alan and Dave. Oh, no, we won't. That's not David. Down there. And to talk to us about changes to infrastructure funding and financing tools. Hello.
We sent out a memo a couple of weeks ago regarding an announcement that was made by Minister for Housing, Minister for Infrastructure, Chris Bishop, around some changes to the infrastructure funding and financing tools that are available to local government. And we understand there may be some questions about how this announcement will impact our development contribution policy and the review that's currently underway. So the Going for Housing Growth program is being run out of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Pillar 1 was announced in June of last year and it concerns freeing up land for urban development. And Pillar 2 was announced at the end of February and it's around providing councils with more flexible infrastructure funding and financing tools to support infrastructure to support that urban development. So the key issue that they're trying to solve here is that as land becomes more fully available and growth can occur anywhere in the district, there's a lot less certainty with where that growth could occur and when development will occur. So councils still need to build infrastructure to respond to growth, and DCs are still the primary mechanism to fund that growth infrastructure. However, the DC system is not that flexible, and dealing with uncertainties regarding growth means that councils are currently under collecting in development contributions. The problem is that DCs were designed back in the early 2000s when councils had a lot more control over where growth could occur because they had more control over the release of urban land. And because they had more control of that, they had a better idea of where growth was going to occur. And so it was easier to apportion growth across the city. And if you remember back to your DC briefings, we draw catchments for every activity and then we apportion growth across all of those catchments and then we assign infrastructure to each of those catchments. And then we calculate the DC charge by dividing the cost of growth for each of those catchments by the amount of growth that will occur in those catchments. So if we don't have a great idea of where growth is going to occur, we risk significant undercollection with our development contributions policy. And that's why we've advised against going too small with our catchments as part of this review. And because DCs are a cost recovery tool for infrastructure that's already in the capital program, if developers don't fund it via DCs, it gets funded through rates. So there's three key components to Pillar 2. Development levies is the one that's probably gotten the most attention. It's the one we know the most about. So development levies are intended to replace development contributions. Development contributions and development levies are broadly the same thing in that they are a one-off payment made by developers when undertaking development. The key change is that councils will no longer draw catchments for each of the activities and will no longer apportion growth or infrastructure to those catchments. Instead, levies will be set across an urban centre, so that will be known as a levy zone, and then every developer will pay the same levy per HUI or per unit of demand for their development. So they'll essentially pay an aggregated cost of growth when undertaking development. Councils will be able to add an additional charge if there is an area of the city where where there is an activity where it is expensive to provide infrastructure to service development. And some of the methodology that is in the levy policy. So we're thinking that's around cost allocations for the projects. And then some of the assumptions around non-residential demand will become standardised across all countries, all development levy policies across the country. Water organisations will also be able to charge development levies for the activities for which they are responsible. There'll also be some regulatory oversight of our development levies that are set. And the government states that the aim of levies is to better recover the full costs of infrastructure from those that benefit from the provision of that infrastructure, and to reduce cross-subsidisation of growth by ratepayers. And then just to touch very briefly on the other elements of the announcement. So the government is proposing some changes to the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act, particularly as it relates to special purpose vehicles. So special purpose vehicles can be used to fund infrastructure. Finance raised by an SPV sits off the council's balance sheets, ensuring it doesn't impact council debt limits. Those who benefit from that infrastructure are then charged a levy by the SPV. These levies are charged annually for a set period of time. Levies are collected by the council alongside rates and then passed on to the SPV. The government notes that the current settings within the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act are complicated and have led to poor uptake of the SPV system. So they are proposing some changes, broadening the scope of the Act so levies can be used in a wider range of circumstances. They're streamlining the development levy and approvals process and increasing the flexibility of the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act to allow it to be used in a wider range of infrastructure projects. And then the final change is to targeted rates. So the government is proposing to allow councils to set targeted rates based on when a rating unit is developed, so potentially for a new subdivision. And then the government's also saying that councils will be able to use targeted rates and development levies together if there is an infrastructure project that benefits new growth and existing residents. And that's basically all we know so far. We will continue to engage with MHUD staff over the coming months as they develop this legislation, and we will let you know when we have more information that we can share. So in terms of the timeframe of these changes, the legislation is expected to be introduced in September of this year, and we expect the legislation will be enacted in mid-2026. Development levies will come into effect from 2027. So we are currently out for consultation on our draft development contribution policy. Consultation closes on the 26th of March, and we already have received submissions on the policy. We expect that hearings will occur in April alongside the annual plan. And then we will workshop the submissions received and potential policy changes with you in May, and then bring a final report to you with the final draft policy in June for adoption. And we do also have a rebate briefing coming with respect to development contribution rebates as requested at the meeting in February. So under the LGA, we are required to have a policy on development contributions and to review that policy every 3 years. The current DC policy was adopted in July of 2021, so it is due for review. We still need to have a DC policy until at least 2027, and our current policy does not reflect Council's actual current cost to deliver growth infrastructure. We've talked about this in previous briefings, but the cost of growth capex between 2021 LTP and 2024 LTP increased about $200 million, and current developers are not paying for that in their development contribution assessments. So ultimately, the concerns that have been raised by the government are aligned with staff advice that has been provided throughout the policy review and what we are experiencing in Christchurch. We don't have great idea of where growth is going to occur, and that's why we have tried to keep our catchments as big as we can within the parameters that are set by the LGA. So we've tried to create a policy that manages uncertainty with where growth is going to occur, tries to provide flexibility for our asset planners in responding to that growth, and tries to avoid revenue leakages within the DC policy. So for those reasons, we are recommending you continue to consult on the development contribution policy and review it this year.
Right, thank you. Tyler first, please.
Kia ora. Two quick ones. The first one is in regards to the consultation that we're putting out, that will be in place for the next 2 years until it's enacted in 2027.
Yep.
Great. This is massive, by the way, in my opinion. Can you just for public knowledge, because this is a public workshop, in layman's terms, so that the public understand what's going on, the pros and cons from a council standpoint, from an organisational standpoint, within the changes that are happening right now?
So in terms of the levies, this will probably suit us fairly well in terms of avoiding some of the revenue leakages that we're experiencing in our policy. So we do have some activities that we're under collecting, and our development contribution catchments in our current policy are probably too small. So the bigger the catchments, the less likelihood of under collecting. So in that respect, that will suit us fairly well. I don't have an opinion on the SPVs or the targeted rates, though. I'm not sure if someone in finance
That was
does.
my last question, was particularly around the targeted rate. How would we set that, and at what level would that be at on top of the levy that we've got coming up?
Through you, Your Worship. Councillor, look, that comes through the IFF, or the Infrastructure Financing and Funding Act, and generally that seems to be legislation that is more utilised by councils who have used up their debt headroom, because actually those financing and funding mechanisms are quite a lot more expensive than what we can get through the LGFA. So they wouldn't necessarily be looked at us as a first option for financing.
Okay, Ellen, thanks for that. Now, just for did you say that when the development levy, because a contribution will go, levy, did I hear you say water will be on top of that? Did I hear you say that?
So the water organisation will be able to collect development levies for their activities. Under the water services legislation, the legislation that's in the House at the moment, it's basically saying, it's referring to development contributions, and it's basically saying that water organisations can have a policy, or councils could extend their policy to the water organisation. So we'll deal with that sort of as we know more.
So at the moment, say a developer, doesn't matter who it is, where pays his DCs and there's a wee water component of that, that may well vanish out of there and they'll get a...
Yeah, it'll sit potentially in a separate policy, but those decisions haven't been made yet, and we don't.
Yeah, more so when they're in a CCO, the water services.
Yep.
Watercare do that currently, don't they, in Auckland?
Yeah, so Auckland, for example, their policy doesn't include water supply or wastewater charges, and they're charged for separately under a separate policy. So that's the sort of thing that could happen.
And the
What
last
does
one...
Wellington's do? Because that's the bigger question, because Auckland seems to be running pretty well. Wellington Water's absolutely out the door. So what's their system? Because we want to avoid that one.
Yeah, I know, that'll be happening. At the moment, how many catchments have we got, roughly? Are you anticipating and what?
Depends. So stormwater, I think we've got 9 water supply. So it's probably between 9 and 12 catchments for the waters. And then I think we've got 3 or 4 catchments for road network and neighbourhood parks. And then a lot of district-wide catchments
and
as
all
well.
of those catchment areas are a little bit there, a little dollars-wise. It's all sort of...
Yeah.
What's being proposed is everything will be in the big ball of wax? Is that...
Yep, so they'll be set across what they're referring to as an urban centre. So we're not sure if that means a district-wide or a city-wide centre. So that will be, and then the charges will be flat across that centre.
Okay, that will become clear as time progresses. Samuel? No, don't worry. Pauline? Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, so a couple of questions. With switching, does the cost go up to the consumer?
To the levies.
Yeah.
So we need to see the legislation. In effect, we think those charges will sort of flatten. So where there's higher charges and lower charges, currently under our development contribution policy, it'll just kind of flatten. They're still paid for by the developer, whether the developer passes those on as part of the land is a separate question.
Well, they always do. They're not, unless it's a charity developer. But and with that, did the with the whole DCs thing, did the government look into the cost of applying DCs, as in when you add $30,000 to a house up front, the person borrows an extra $30,000, so they pay back $50,000, and the economic cost of that versus if the councils did it themselves, given that it's a different measure. For New Zealand Inc., you're taking hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars a year out of the economy and giving it to banks, doing it that way versus the other way.
So we don't know a lot right now. We've really only got a couple of releases from the minister and then some fact sheets that have been released by the ministry. So we don't know what they've sort of looked at. What we know from what's been released is that their concern is that ratepayers are currently cross-subsidising growth because of the way development contributions are set up. And so the intention of this levy is to ensure that growth pays for growth. And that's
So,
kind of...
so they could be higher as what
Yeah,
they're
so
saying.
then isn't there a counter argument to that yes, DCs might go on this property over here, but this new subdivision's so nice that their rates are 5 times the amount of houses on the other side of town. So who's really subsidising who when you do it that way round?
So this is really just a cost recovery tool for infrastructure that's...
Yeah, and that's why it led me to,
Program.
did the government do the work to go, what's the cost to New Zealand Inc. if the individual house owners are borrowing the money on their mortgage versus if councils borrow the money at lower rates to deliver the same thing? You're delivering the same pipe, it's just how did you get the money? And one version of money is more expensive than another is the question.
Yeah, Alan, we will get an opportunity to put a submission on this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, we haven't seen the legislation yet. Again, expecting that in September, and then we'll have more information then, and we can.
Yeah, it'd just be interesting if someone had even done an equation, because it'll be a lot of money collectively over the whole country, as in it'll be eye-watering.
Once we see the detail, and we will have an opportunity to make a submission on that, and we could look at those types of issues, ask those questions.
Yeah, okay.
Alan, just a bit of clarity from me for Aaron. And I think I'm right here, if you buy a section in a new subdivision anywhere and put a house on it, you don't pay DCs because it's already in the price of the section.
Yes. Development contributions have been paid for by the developer when
Yes,
they...
that's right. So you
when
build
they
the house,
undertook
it doesn't cost you any more.
Yes.
If you buy a house that's on the back of an existing section, sorry, you've got a house on a section and you build a flat or whatever on the back, you pay DCs on that one because you're creating one more. But when you're in a new subdivision or anywhere where it's already had the DCs paid on that one section and it's vacant, you don't pay DCs because it's already been done.
Yes.
I'm just a bit of clarity for everyone.
Yeah, so the policy assumes that each lot contains one HUI, and
Yep.
so at subdivision you pay one HUI, and if you put more than one house on it, then you will pay for
Yeah, I
that
know that.
additional
I'm just
house.
trying to...
Phil, you've carved up a couple of paddocks in your time, and when you were selling a section for, say, $230,000, it would have only been $200,000 if you didn't have a massive DCs bill at the other end.
That'd be correct. Yep.
Yeah.
But you've got to pay... You've
Yeah,
got
you
to
have to pay for it. But didn't you then pay to put in all the pipes and everything else as well?
That's right. No, but this is where... No, you're
Sorry.
right. This is where DCs, a developer buys it all, puts all the road in to council standard and gives it to the council. The DCs are the right to hook onto
Onto
the
the other
council system for more sewer or more water in or sorting out your stormwater. It's the extra.
And then you get the right of a really expensive bill because the subdivision was nice.
That's like... Okay, so we've got Jake. Please.
Thanks, Alan. Hey, I must have missed something when you said that the government were looking at DCs because growth isn't being adequately covered. So what's wrong with the current system that not 100% of growth is being accounted for?
So the issue that we currently have is that we're not necessarily apportioning growth in the right places, and so we're not dividing the cost of growth by the right number.
Right.
And what tends to happen is we get to the end of the period in which we collect development contributions, and there's an amount that's left over, and at that point that's not going to be recovered by developers because we can't charge other developers for capacity that's been taken up by a development that didn't pay for it.
Got you.
So it gets paid for by the ratepayers. But ultimately, development contributions go to pay down debt. So if we're under collecting and development contributions. As time goes on, then that's
And we
debt that
always
we're not,
always under collect. We don't over collect.
and that's not just our council, it's a lot of councils across New Zealand. Minister Bishop gave some examples of other councils that have quite significant under collections and development contributions.
And that's why the government's looking at going a whole urban catchment.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, interesting.
Any more questions? Everybody's happy. Thank you very much. That's very clear, and it'll be interesting to see what starts coming up the pipe. Good on you. Okay, everybody, we will be back here at 1:30 to listen to Otatahi Christchurch Future Transport Strategy. Thank you. Hey, welcome back, everyone. So that was good. Good wee break. Our final session today is Jane and Mark. Yes. Here to talk about Ōtautahi, Christchurch future transport strategy. So fire away, please. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora koutou. So the session this afternoon, as we lead into the report tomorrow, where councillors will consider the decision to adopt the strategy. What we're planning on doing is providing just a really quick recap, quick process recap, quick what's in it recap, a summary of submissions that Hannah's going to lead, that we received in the written submissions from the public, and then we've got a number of proposed amendments that councillors have proposed. So the idea is to work through those, and if there are any questions, clarifications, we can do that through that process as well. So without further ado, the what is it and why update it now? Just really quickly, this question's come up through the submissions process. So what is it? It's your 30-year horizon strategy. It's high level, it's district-wide, it's whole of network in focus and scope. And the intention is for it to guide both transport delivery and also our policy and planning programs that are high level. Why update it? The 2012 strategic plan was developed in the context of earthquake recovery and regeneration. The strategic landscape has evolved over that time, whether it be the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan, MRT planning, climate adaptation risk data. There's a number of things that have occurred recently that lend itself to having a look at what our 30-year plan is. And the other point there is having an up-to-date strategy is beneficial for engaging with the transport funding system as well. We've provided a timeline there, which gives you an overview of the council decisions over time. There was a number of pause points, particularly around the local government election and the change of government. Was that 2023, end of 2023? So I think one point to note here is that there have been a number. What you're seeing in front of you now has changed and evolved with that timeline. I think with the early document going out for, in that notice of motion stage before the local government elections last time round, it actually was a really useful, you might call that pre-engagement, because we got quite a lot of feedback from the community, which has been factored into subsequent drafts. And with the change of government, realising that we had to click it up another notch because, with changes in government policy, we need to actually hover above that and talk about what we want to do for the city. So there's a number of changes over that time. Couple of recap slides. What are our big 30-year horizon planning challenges and opportunities for transport? Growth and productivity is a big one. Population growth, particularly sub-regional population growth, more people in freight wanting to travel in a largely static amount of road space, natural hazards resilience, the city shaping work that we're doing, particularly around the MRT, meeting our climate targets, and the other thing that I want to note there is that there were some changes to the strategy off the back of the last LTP process, particularly the directions in the infrastructure strategy around looking after what we've got and having a strategic focus on asset management as well. Finally, this is the big the high level overview of what went out for consultation. We've got the vision statement there, the goals. Again, that well managed assets. Also to do with, I guess, assets, a resilient transport network, but also planning for climate adaptation in particular. Safe network, efficiency on the network, choice and that land use integration piece around vibrant, healthy and livable city. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Hannah to talk about the engagement.
So up on the screen is something a little bit new that you should start seeing more when we present on consultation feedback. We talk to residents a lot, and as an organisation have good information about what our residents think about certain topics. We've started to take this into account more when communicating with the community, but it's probably also helpful to remind you as decision makers what we already know about community views prior to consultation. The 2024 neighbourhood survey had around 4,500 responses and transport featured heavily. Here we heard that safety was the most important neighbourhood attribute for residents when choosing where to live. This was followed by it being a quiet neighbourhood, neighbourhood character, public transport access, then street trees and gardens. Proximity to areas that they appreciate was their favourite thing about their neighbourhood. One of the main things that residents would change about their neighbourhood was improving traffic, roading, driving conditions, and this included concerns around speeds and speed limits, quality or layout of roads, traffic, roadworks, etc. And dangerous driving and traffic congestion were two of the top 3 challenges that neighbourhoods felt like they were facing. So knowing all of that, we ran consultation on Ōtautahi Christchurch future transport from 8th November to the 8th of December 2024. As the previous slide and our submission numbers on transport projects indicate, people care about transport. So we wanted there to be good knowledge about the strategy and opportunities to provide feedback. We tried to reach people in many different ways, as shown on screen, and this resulted in the webpage being viewed over 10,000 times during the consultation period. There is an update to this slide as the Property Council have withdrawn their submission this week. So verbally, the update, we received 93 submissions from 72 individuals and 21 businesses and organisations. Here, there was around 49% support and 33% somewhat support of the strategy, and 12% or 11 submitters did not support the plan. As discussed within the report, it was quite difficult to theme feedback. Most of the most commonly discussed themes were support for particular aspects of the strategy, namely the developing and expanding our cycle network, improving public transport systems, and a focus on mass rapid transit. However, we did dig a little deeper and focused a lot of our submission analysis on areas that submitters told us they'd like included or strengthened. And I think Jane's going to speak to the amendments that came out of that work now.
Yes. So just before I do, I just want to the papers that I've dropped on your desks. There's 3 pieces of paper. One is the written submission feedback that staff have prepared, an overview of that, which I'll talk to next. The other documents are the councillor proposed recommended changes, and we've also, because we got quite a lot of feedback from councillors, we've done a couple of things. So there's a table which has, I guess, what you might call the more substantive requests for change, but we've also gone through the draft document and made some changes which are highlighted off the back of councillor feedback, which are single word changes or sentences with amended changes, or a request to delete a sentence if it's something that doesn't necessarily change the sense of the document. We've made those smaller changes to get us going, but happy to take feedback on that as well. So before we get into that, the proposed amendments. So as Hannah said, we went through because there was a lot of different feedback in a lot of different areas in the written comments. So we went through it and did some analysis, I guess at a thematic level, really looking for gaps, cross-cutting themes, requests for inclusion, and that's what sits in the analysis on this table. Also included in this table are some of the more granular changes, some errors that were pointed out that we've made. A really good example there is some of the newer subdivisions didn't pull through in the map of the whole network, which was unfortunate. So we've amended that as well. So, proposed amendments at a more substantive level. So we had a fair bit of feedback on the vision statement, and from a substantive perspective, we are proposing that we change the reference to enabling everyone to move around easily to more reliably and efficiently, because people wanted to see, I guess easy means a whole bunch of things to different people, and putting, making that more crisper was good feedback from the submissions. We've got, you can see the analysis in the table. I won't go through everything, but we can take questions. We've included an additional equitable and inclusive access goal. This was a theme that came through in a number of different spaces. Is there a question from the floor?
No, I'm
We'll
just
table
writing
it.
down.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got it there. Yeah, through.
So there were a number of feedback from a number of different submitters who wanted to see it in one place. I think it was kind of references to inclusive and equitable access were peppered throughout in different places, but we're proposing to add an additional cross-cutting goal for equitable and inclusive access. There were requests to strengthen some of the references to growth challenges and opportunities, which we've done in the front end of the report. A number of submitters wanted to see that connection between safety, health and wellbeing. The safety section is quite focused on reducing deaths and serious injuries on the network, so we've added some text in there which draws links across the document for some of the other actions that support health and wellbeing. A request to broaden the reference to resilience and the strategic challenges, which we've added, and what we mean by that is quite a strong focus on natural hazards and the resilience discussions, and a number of submitters pointed out that there's more to a resilient feedback than natural hazards per se, so we've added a bit of text in there, such as the way you design your network or energy considerations, that kind of thing. Added more information on earthquake resilience. There was people wanting to see for us to include particularly the role of private vehicles on the network. So we've added some additional performance measures around private vehicles and added additional references to them in the right movement, right place. We've also added reference to the economic role that central city parking plays. And you'll recall from the airport deputation that there was wanting to see the recognition of the role of the airport beyond it being a freight node, I guess, and we've added reference to the bus route uplift and needing to connect employment hubs more broadly as part of the strategy as well. So those, I guess, are the most substantive proposed amendments. Before we go on to the councillor recommendations through the chair, it could be a pause point for questions if that works for councillors.
Yep. We have two. We have Aaron and Andre.
Yes. So was it a total of 94 submissions, and that's it for a 30-year transport plan? Okay, so and how much would that cost us to do all of that and our promotion and advertising that to get 94 submissions? Ballpark.
I have the marketing spend, so we don't do staff time as it was through it.
Ultimately, one thing to note is it's a strategy as opposed to a plan. The strategy is high level. People are more inclined to engage on matters that are specific to their circumstances or the property. For instance, the district plan change 14 drew out a significant volume of submissions because people understood how it affected them in a day in terms of their property.
Yeah,
So
that's right. We do struggle to hear from people on future-focused strategies. So it was just under 10,000.
Okay, and we got 94. So
And 10,000 views. So people knew about it, but you can lead a horse to water.
yeah, but obviously what we said about it didn't engage them, because if you go to our Facebook page, most of the time we don't get much engagement. You get half a dozen, maybe 30 comments. I note the Chalice got 270 comments. So for the last few weeks, the Chalice, and then the parking by the hospital got 215. So they're outliers, well beyond. But when it's something people are interested in, like the Chalice or the hospital parking, they do comment. And so it just seems kind of, I mean, we're hardly speaking on behalf of the people with 94 submissions is my concern.
I'd just reiterate my point that people will be more engaged on matters that they can see a direct impact on them.
Oh, none of this directly impacts people. Of course, it's only transport. But,
Okay. Andre, please.
I think it's an important point. Sort of when we're saying sometimes, as soon as you put the words draft, strategy, long-term plan, annual plan in front of people, you've just lost most people. Talking, those words are enough to put anyone off knowing what you're talking about, to be honest. So my question's around just the amendment I put through. Now, page 27, we want walking to be a safe and attractive option for short trips. Currently, with new subdivision development, is we've got development being done, roadworks being done, contractors all out there, and they're able to build speed humps, but often they are not building the footpaths at the same time, and council has to come in and fill it in later. So I would have thought something around committing to connecting new subdivisions with amenities by footpaths, something along those lines would be worthwhile having in any form of strategy when we're trying to achieve these things.
Sure. So we've moved into the I guess the next section, councillor, and we're going to work through that.
Okay,
table.
so I thought we were with this bit and proposed amendments.
No, sorry, just to be clear, these proposed amendments are off the back of the written submissions.
Okay.
So we're just starting with that, and then we're going to move into the council recommendations for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
Okay.
Please.
All right. So, Sean, I think I'm going to require assistance we're going to get the table up on screen. There we go. Yay. Just propose to do this in a reasonably methodical fashion. We've got a number of proposed amendments from councillors. Most I think are reasonably self-evident, but if we just work through them, is that the way that councillors would like to do it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. All right. So
Take a wee bit of time today, but it'll save a lot of time tomorrow.
Okay, so we've got a number of proposed submissions from Councillor McDonald. So, Councillor, I may have you on speed dial as we go through these ones. The first one relates to a diagram that is on page 10, which was intended to show a scenario of what your 10-trip mix could look like on the network if you were to meet your emissions targets, the emissions targets that council has set. We do note in the comment that has been misinterpreted out there in the world as a target, a 25% reduction in traffic on the network target. So that is the staff, I guess the staff comment as a result of that recommendation. Councillor McDonald, is there anything else that you wanted to add with that one?
I don't, to be honest, they're all pretty, from my point of view, they're all quite self-explanatory.
Okay, great.
I don't think it'll be useful for me to add my
All right.
my commentary.
We'll work
I can,
through
but I'm not sure it'd be helpful to the order of the meeting. Yeah.
Let's just work.
Yeah. I'm here to spend 3 or 4 hours, but it's not.
Yeah, I think if we just work through them efficiently, and if you've got anything to add, Councillor McDonald, then we'll do it that way rather than the other way.
Do we want to take questions on each one as we go through? Otherwise, we'll forget where we are. Sarah.
Thank you. So removing the diagram would be one way of removing the misinterpretation. What about changing the wording that accompanies it to remove misinterpretation? So clarifying what we've said about it not being a target and stuff. It's quite a useful way of people seeing that, because we know a lot of people are visual learners, not everyone just reads text, and actually having visuals, people have said, has been helpful with the plan as well. So finding ways to show people that actually we're not just going to be removing all the cars and flooding the streets with bikes is quite useful too. Yeah, so you could change the wording instead.
Alternative option.
Yeah. So just clarify, these haven't been done yet in the track changes.
Nope.
So you're looking for guidance today as to whether we think we might want those done in the meeting?
No,
not these ones.
Not necessarily. I
The
mean,
small
I
ones
think
have
the idea was more go through. If there's any discussion, if there's any, I guess, changes that councillors want to make as a consequence. Otherwise, it would simply be a vote.
So this is going to be your recommended kind of version tomorrow?
These will be, because what we're saying here is that these changes are what you might call substantive changes to the document.
Yeah.
So it would be
an amendment put forward by a councillor tomorrow.
It would be an amendment put forward by a councillor tomorrow, and there would be a vote on each.
And because
one
they're
of those 18.
substantial, having just one councillor put them forward isn't enough to make the changes based on beforehand. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. The second one is.
Oh, sorry. Melanie had a question.
Oh, right.
If that image comes out, you haven't talked about the paragraph above it, or the page before it. So would that go as well? Is that what you're saying?
The paragraph.
There's a paragraph above it on page 9. So at the bottom of page 9, there's a thing in the box that refers to the image. Would that stay with just the last sentence gone, or what's your intention there? If the image was to go, would that last sentence go, or that entire box?
I think you'd either have to change it. You would have to change the sentence to say, for example, this is what a 10-trip mix would look like. But the request is to remove the box.
Yeah. So
at
if
this stage,
that whole box.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just the image.
That's my understanding, anyway. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Is that correct?
I'm just trying to find my initial.
Are you wanting to delete that box?
Whatever I wrote on there at the time is what I wanted.
Well, it doesn't say, it just says the image.
I didn't write that though. I'm just trying to find the pack that I sent.
Because we're going to have
if the diagram
we
was
can't
going,
vote on this properly tomorrow if we haven't got exact clarity about.
Well, yeah. I mean, equally so. I imagine in the recommendation there'll be a grammatical delegation to the team, so it makes coherent sense. Yeah. Unless, that's how we'd normally do them.
Yes, we can do it like that. And only the last sentence needs to go if the diagram is going, because that's what references to the diagram.
Yeah, that was our assumption. I guess part of this exercise for staff is to get clarity as well, because we were interpreting, I guess, written feedback on a document in this case.
The changes are just jump in, because Mel and I were talking about before, and so our understanding though is and the physical one we've got now, these changes are reflected, highlighted changes in there now.
Okay, I'll just back up the track. So you've got two documents. What we haven't done is we've made what we're calling, I guess, less substantive changes that have been requested. So we received quite a lot of changes. So we've made the small changes, and we've drawn out what would be the larger changes in the table for discussion right now.
The key point is the table in front of you, that those requests that have been made that are in the table are not reflected in this draft strategy because they're substantive changes that would require understanding of where council sits on those changes.
But so just so I'm really clear in my mind, where we've added in things like free-flowing traffic and productivity,
Yep.
they're not going to be amendments tomorrow. They're captured in the staff response.
They are what we're saying is they are the proposed councillor changes that we've added, that what you might call a change to a sentence rather than something that's a more substantive change. Yeah.
But so like adding in the free-flowing traffic and the productivity, what you're saying is that the item that will be put on the table tomorrow in initial form, they will be captured in there already.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And just to clarify the question before, Councillor McDonald did not seek adjustment to that paragraph, just the diagram. Yes.
Just the diagram?
Yes.
Well, you're voting on that too.
So,
No, the yellow stuff's all councillor changes.
Yeah.
The thing that's added in.
the draft strategy has also got submitted changes. So, yeah, Jane, would you just like to clarify, or John, that again, just so that everyone's on the same page?
Okay. I think in trying to make it easy, we've made it less easy, unfortunately. So I'm going to hold the documents up. Okay. So this document here,
The book?
has the proposed written submitter feedback and the agenda currently. And the highlighted changes are changes that have been requested by councillors that we've added in because they are the less, what you might call the minor changes. So unless you ask us otherwise with these changes,
That's in it.
that's in it. We're not asking for a vote on it.
To make it really easy tomorrow, Jane, I'm comfortable. I don't need my amendments put from this because I'm happy with productivity, free-flowing traffic, and the like. I actually like what you've updated.
Okay.
So,
Are you happy with the image being there?
well, that's not the big thing. But where we've changed the goal and stuff like that to be more productive in the free-flowing traffic. Like I like all that stuff.
Okay.
So I'm just not sure.
That's
And we
good.
don't need to spend 4 hours on amendments tomorrow when I've got the substantive changes that I wanted in this.
They're the smaller ones in there. The bigger ones, correct me if I'm
Well,
wrong.
arguably, I'd say that they're not the small ones. But that's, yeah, like productivity and free flying to me would have been the material ones. But I'm happy they're in the.
Okay, hang on here. Okay, now confusion is running. Sorry, Sarah.
So can I just check though? So with the changes that are made in here currently,
Yeah.
and I quite like the talk of really efficient transport and those kind of things because we know what's the most efficient and it's not single occupancy cars, so that's good. But the tension between free flowing traffic and the targets we've got for traffic reduction, there's no. So it's the having fewer cars on the network that allows the cars that are on the network to travel freely. Is that right? So there's nothing in there that stops our goals of mode shift.
No.
Also the reference to
So
free
it kind of
flow.
makes it stronger for mode shift to have free flowing and efficient traffic. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. It's great.
So just to clarify the goal that's amended of enhancing the efficiency of economic and essential travel still captures the essence of it by reference to free flowing and efficient movement, noting it's not about, it doesn't say free flowing cars, it says free flowing movement.
That's right. Yeah. That's good.
Tangible example, and we can get petulant on it if we want, and I'm happy to put all of these up on the table tomorrow.
free.
But if you think about Manchester Street, where it literally doesn't flow at all now,
Yeah.
this would allow that.
It never did.
But it should. Yeah. So this plan would now allow that.
It would give us an avenue to do so.
Well,
I think what we're saying, based off the feedback, is let's put all the amendments up tomorrow, and we'll just go through them one by one.
yeah, sure.
Yep.
Just confirming, decision would be on the draft strategy in front of you that reflects the submitter's feedback and the councillor feedback that's of a more minor nature. The table would be over and above that of changes that are not reflected in the draft strategy, but you would need to vote on to decide what has changed in the strategy or not.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, we are voting on the other amendments in this table as well?
If councillors want us to put each...
I was okay with it, but then it got sort of sidetracked. So let's vote on them tomorrow.
Okay, so you
Don't
want
know
to
what was
just go
It'll
through?
save us going through it all now because it's...
Yeah. Happy, look, 100% happy to do that, but it was more an opportunity.
Is everyone happy with that? So we'll just... This is ready to vote on one way or another. Is that
Yeah.
what it?
Yep.
These are the amendments that may go into this if everyone agrees. Perfect. No, we had to get them in by last Monday lunchtime.
But how can you amend what someone
Yeah, but the thing is, yeah. You'd have to be able to make changes based off something that you hadn't seen. That's the point of, yeah.
What are we playing tiddlywinks for? This is ridiculous.
Okay, so this is going to get voted on one by one tomorrow.
Yes.
There's a number of them are sandwiched with a couple at the other end.
Yeah.
And then if they're in or out, they'll be in or out, and then we vote on that.
Yep.
Okay.
It's got to be argued
Right.
about. This is crazy.
Clear. Everyone happy? Right, we get back to questions. Yeah, Pauline.
Yes.
Just wee things.
We're able to agree or disagree with certain aspects of these amendments in here on the day.
Yes, in short, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
If there's amendments that there's not a so putting aside the table, if you see amendments in the draft that has been shared with you and you disagree with the change, then no doubt you'd need to seek an amendment to vote on that.
Either remove it or change it.
Yep.
Okay, that's clear. I think we're clear.
Melanie.
So, for example, number 2 on here, you've said that that's not included, but it is. So I'm
Melanie,
really...
on here. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2, an additional productivity goal, but you've changed one of the goals to include what Councillor McDonald would like in it. So that's actually already in.
Yes,
Why are you
that's-
telling us it isn't?
This one here is was a request to add a separate productivity goal. Now we haven't done that, but what we have done is added some text in the right movement in the right places to reflect that productivity is part of that. Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow's going to be exciting. Yanni, please.
So where you've got a response to my question, do you want me to formulate an amendment to require us to do it? Like, I disagree with the staff response, because basically the staff response is status quo, and nothing will change unless we have a formal resolution. So
If you disagree with one of the changes that is in the draft that we've shared with you, then you would need to request an amendment to that draft.
I just said that and I said you couldn't do it. I was just told that.
No,
We didn't tell you that.
no, I didn't tell you that.
My response to Councillor Cotter was consistent with what I just communicated.
So basically, so where you've given advice and that hasn't led to an amendment, then we need to craft it ourselves, insert it in.
Yes, if you don't feel we've adequately addressed a submitter's concern, you need to seek an amendment. We'd like to have the wording before the meeting so we can get it on the screen in time.
Yeah.
Right.
So this will be this request has been made, I think, several times now. I want a process by which we engage the local community when we're doing street repairs, renewals, so that like the submitters that came and talked to us about getting better outcomes, maybe a few trees, maybe
It's surely part of the Local Government
It-
Act.
yeah,
no, it's
all part of the
not.
same.
It's not. So this is the problem. We don't make decisions.
the first the residents know is they get a start work notice.
But it is part of the local government.
Right, hang on a minute.
So, like, I'm happy to take advice from stuff. Like, it's not new. I'm not just raising this at the last minute. I've put this in repeatedly. It would be a good way. I mean, I just want to try and find a way forward. Submitters made the point in the deputation.
Just if I can clarify the point that Councillor Johansson is
Right, please,
seeking
Mark. Yeah.
is in the last row of the table. You'll be voting on each row in the table, so your amendment that you're seeking is subject to a vote.
Those, just to be clear though, we've got some Q&A in there as well. So where we've answered a question, that is not a proposed amendment.
So, but Jane, just so I'm on the right track, this one, anything that's highlighted in yellow, if anyone's not happy with it,
Yes.
bring it up tomorrow.
Yep.
But generally, just flicking through it, you've done a good job on what people have submitted and what councillors have thrown at you. And these are the meatier ones.
Yes. So the first table has the councillor requests. We also responded to councillor questions as well on there. And Councillor Johansson has indicated that the answer to the question, he is actually seeking an amendment. So that would need to get that through in written form
So
for
previously
consideration.
I've asked, how could we engage the community when we're doing significant road repairs at an earlier stage so that we can get better outcomes?
So we have a response, but if you're looking for something in addition,
I'm just thinking, would that level of detail get into a strategy?
I don't think so. No, I think it's more of an implementation consideration.
So do I need
which is
to
what we've
change
said there?
delegations, basically?
I'm just sorry, because through our community board we get the list of roadworks in our wards. What's the?
Oh, so what happened was, the community will get a whole list, right? And some board members will have feedback about individual streets, and that's fine. And that
The community board does. The community doesn't know.
No, the community. Yeah, so the community board can give some feedback if they know there's an issue. But in our board's area, what happened was a resident got a start work notice and said, "Oh, can you just put in some trees, or can you narrow it down because we've got 30k and everyone's speeding, and you're just renewing the road." And basically, there was no time. The first the local residents knew about it was a start work notice that work's starting in a couple of days.
You go and talk to Jane offline about that.
Yeah, and it was the same for the guy that made the submission.
Eric.
Just on the bottom of page 23 in this one, as I was going through the amendments, I saw the how we're prioritising economic and essential movement on the local network. How do emergency vehicles do mode shift? When you look up our definition of mode shift.
The point being that
The ambulance
One at a time we get into things like...
There are ambulance pipes.
Yeehaw.
sorry,
right.
if I can clarify.
Yeah, it's the pedal fire truck that I
like
like.
Righto, that's enough. Come on, guys. It gets dark at 9 o'clock tonight. Okay, we don't want to be here then. Let's get on with it.
Sure, just
Andre.
yeah.
Thank you.
That was a serious question from me.
Should I re-ask my question?
Sorry, what was
It's the same question from before.
Yep.
Just on
Subdivisions, yeah.
why the plan wouldn't have something included around areas being connected to amenities.
Isn't it just a timing issue? They do.
Well, that's kind of my point, is we build new subdivisions and they're building everything at the same time the contractors are out there. The council makes an active choice not to include footpaths as part of those works. That council will then have to come and fill in later. That will not, to be clear, will not be filled in by developers at a later date. So
what
to me it seems like something you would absolutely have in any strategy. The areas would be connected with footpaths. We want walking to be a safe and attractive option for short trips, but we actively choose not to build them at the same time as other infrastructure or new subdivisions are going in.
And so
which would contradict that strategy.
We've got that as a requested amendment, so that would be part of what you would be voting on tomorrow.
So
we've got staff comment on the side there, though.
The top of page.
You mean the staff comment would be added?
No, your wording, if
We're-
it passes, we'll get
Look,
that. It's just that there's
We're getting flat out nowhere here.
So I've requested staff wording to the strategy. So what will that wording potentially be that would be in the strategy?
So what we're saying is you've requested wording change.
Yes.
And we've provided advice that
You've provided advice, but
Yep.
yeah. And what wording have you provided? You haven't provided wording.
we would provide wording if the alternative recommendation was sought. As
So I
part of-
move an amendment and then you provide wording.
The amendments to change is to add.
So if council resolves tomorrow to accept that point, there'd be a delegation to arrive at wording suitable that's agreed between.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So tomorrow, take for example number 16, Councillor Moore's one that's in front of us. He will say, "I have a seconder," which will be someone, and then we'll discuss it and it'll vote on it. It'll either be in or out, and then you'll play around with the wording to make it happy. For okay. So I think we should just do that with all of them. Otherwise, we'll be here for the rest of our life. Okay. Anyone got any really big issues? Because there's not that many there. And half of them get knocked out, maybe, don't know, whatever it is.
Less than plan change 14.
Yeah, thank you.
I just like,
Yanni, please.
and again, this is something that I've raised previously, but we've got goals, but we don't seem to have targets or ways of measuring targets. And I'm just wondering why we're not setting targets in this.
We have a performance measurement section in there. So I guess it's that, and council have set targets in some other areas, such as your climate change targets that this plan is seeking to move us forward on. So that's the approach that we've taken.
So when I look at the goals, like on page whatever it is, sorry that we don't have page numbers here, but in the 10-year, in the goal, the 10-year work program, there's no measurement. Like if we look at safety, for example, a safer transport network, it just says deliver safe system infrastructure improvements to high risk areas to reduce harm. Why don't we set a target of reducing by 25% or?
We set a target through our levels of service. So we've kept this high level, and the implementation will be through the long-term plan, and we're also proposing that we put a more detailed implementation plan in place following the adoption of this as well.
So when would, for example, the Central City Transport Plan review be done?
There is no date for that right now. Remember, it's a 30-year plan. We're putting. It's more just this is the direction of travel kind of plan is the intention.
Okay. I mean, I've raised this concern with the strategy from the start, but my preference is we have clear targets and we measure against those so that we know if the strategy is making a difference or not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
John?
And I think Jane just mentioned before that is the intention as part of the implementation. There's a page 40.
Yep.
Okay. So tomorrow is going to be busy. But take for argument's sake number one, the first one on the pink sheet. It's Councillor McDonald has said it, and someone will say, I will second that. We will discuss it. We will vote on it. It'll either pass or it'll fail, and then we'll move on to the next one. Just like we do when we go through the annual plan. Bang, bang, bang. If half of them in, half of them out, whatever it is, we're into it. And then, unless anyone's got any burning stuff in here, we'll just vote on that altogether. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's over, Tyler. It's over.